Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is John Hart, and today I want to show you FL Studio in less than 15 minutes. So let's start with this tutorial. Okay, so let's start with this tutorial, which I divide in 6 different sections. The first one is going to be the browser. Then we are going to have a look to the channel rack, then the piano roll, the playlist, the toolbar panel, and the mixer. And the reason why I follow this order is because that's the way how you create a track using FL Studio. So first you use the browser to find your samples or instruments. Then you add these samples or instruments into the channel rack. And then you build a pattern either using the step sequencer or the piano roll. And then you arrange the patterns into a song using the playlist. And from the playlist, all of this audio and information, it goes into the mixer. And then it ends up into the master channel, which is the main output of our song. So let's start with the browser, which basically provides access to projects, samples, content libraries, and the plugins. Next, let's have a look into the channel rack. Here on the channel rack, the first time that you open FL Studio, you are going to have a basic 808 kit with a kick, clap, hi-hat and a snare. If you want to add more samples or instrument, then you go to the browser, and here you have a short packs of sample provided by FL Studio. You have these different categories: drums, instruments, effects, vocals, etc. So here, if I click on drums, I can select a new kick drum, click the sample that you want to add, and simply add it into the channel rack. And if I want an instrument, I just have to go to instrument. Let's imagine that I want a keyboard. I just have to select the keyboard and drag it into the channel rack. If you want to add a virtual instrument, you can also use this plus button and select one between all of these categories. Now, if you want to see what these samples or instruments actually are, you just have to click on it and it's going to open the wrapper. Now, the wrapper basically shows some information of the sample or instrument and let you manipulate the sound of it. Then these dials on the left side of the channel rack have a different functions. So this little circle is basically to mute or solo an instrument. The one on the middle is the panning of the instrument, and the one off the right is the channel volume. Now, if I open the wrapper again, you can see that these dials, the mute, the pan, and the volume are linked. And for any button or dial on FL Studio, if you right-click on it, it will pull up this menu with different options to reset the value for automations, remote control, and value. Then we also have this little box in here which tells you in which mixer track this sample or instrument is going to be, but we are going to have a look to it later on together with the mixer. So let's actually create a pattern. I'm going to create a drum beat, and the easiest way to create a drum beat on FL Studio is using the step sequencer. So here with the kick sample, I'm going to use the step sequencer, which is counting the step or beat on a bar. You can left click to select a step or right click to delete it. You can also left click and drag to add steps, or right click and drag to delete it. So I'm gonna add a basic rhythm to the kick using the step sequencer. Now I can press play and hear how it sounds. And once you have your rhythm created, you can open this graph editor where you can modify the MIDI note, the velocity, pan, etc. So if I want to modify the MIDI note of the kick, I just have to left click and hold the note and put it on the note that I want. And now continue with this drum beat, I'm gonna add an snare, which you can of course add it into the same pattern. You can also create a whole song on a single pattern, but I don't recommend you to do that. In my opinion, the best way to work in FL Studio is by creating a new patterns for each sample or instrument, as it definitely is gonna give you way more flexibility at the time to arrange the song. So I'm gonna go to the toolbar menu, and here on the pattern selector, I'm gonna left click on it, scroll it with the mouse, and it's gonna automatically create another pattern. And in here, I'm gonna add the snare. Now I'm gonna go back to the toolbar, create another pattern, and I'm gonna add a hi-hat. And now that I have these 3 different patterns, I'm gonna go to the picker pattern menu, I'm gonna right click on each of them, and I'm gonna rename it. And now I'm gonna go to the toolbar again and I'm gonna create another pattern, which is gonna be a chord progression using the piano. And this time, instead of using the step sequencer, we are gonna use the piano roll, which is gonna be the next section of this tutorial. In order to open the piano roll, you have two options. You can either go to the toolbar menu and then left click on it to hide it or to show up the piano roll, or you can go to the channel that you want to add these MIDI notes using the piano roll, right click on it and click on piano roll. Now here on the piano roll, on the left side, we have the keyboard. And if you left click one of the notes, you can have a little preview of how it's gonna sound. And then you can add your MIDI notes. I'm gonna add a basic C major chord. And here on the bottom of the piano roll, we have an event editor and the event editor target, where you can choose which parameter you wanna edit, like velocity, the pan, the pitch, and also create automations. So here on the event editor, you can click on the velocity and you can put it down or up, depending of what you want. And now if we go on top of the piano roll, we can see different options and tools to manipulate the MIDI, like a draw tool, a pencil, mute tool, slice tool, selector, etc. And if you go to a specific MIDI note and go into the end of the note, you can left click on it and make it shorter or longer, depending of what you want. If you want to manipulate more of one note at the time, then you choose the selector tool, select all of the notes, going back to the draw, and then at the end of the note you can make shorter or longer. And last, I'm just gonna create another chord. Let's press play and let's see how it sounds. So now let me rename this new pattern and let's have a look into the next section, the playlist. Here on the playlist, we have different sections. Here on the left side, we have our picker panel menu where we can select between patterns, audio clip, or automations that we want to add into the playlist. Then here on the top, we have some playlist options and also some tools similar than the piano roll to manipulate the patterns, audio, or automation on the playlist, like a draw, pencil, mute, slice, and selector tool. So in order to start with the arrangement of our track, we just have to select the pattern that we want to add into the playlist, and now I can add it into the playlist. I'm going to add the snare as well. I can change to the pencil tool, select the hi-hat and add it. And last, the piano. And now in order to listen of what we have on the playlist, we have to select on the transport control what do we have a listen, the pattern or the song, which means that we jump into the next section, the toolbar panel. The function of the toolbar panel is to provide access to many commands and options. And as you can see, there is so many commands and options, but in my opinion, some of them are definitely more relevant than others. So the first one is this menu bar, which provides access to the main menus of FL Studio. And you are gonna use it to open or save projects and also to export your project. And you can also choose one of these different options and it's gonna pull up this menu where you can set up your MIDI devices like keyboard, synths, etc. Then here on the audio setting, you can set up your audio interface and change different options. You also have the general options, the file management, etc. Next, we have the title and hint bar, which can be really useful as this hint bar can show you values and also a short description of a specific parameter plus the shortcut. Next, we have the transport control where you can select between the pattern or the song. You have the play pause button, stop button, and record button. And you also have the tempo box where you can left click and drag the mouse to select a specific tempo, or you can right click on it and type the value. Then we have all of these buttons in here which are basically a recording and automations control. Then you have a pattern selector where you can left click and drag to select the pattern or add a new pattern. Here on the right, you have a quick access to all of the different windows like the playlist, piano roll, channel rack, mixer, and browser. And last, here on top, you have your CPU and memory panel. So in order to listen of what we have on the playlist, we have to select the song mode and then press play. And if you want to listen to a specific pattern, just select the pattern that you want to listen, change the mode to a pattern and press play. And now let's have a look to the last section, which is going to be the mixer. Here on the mixer, in order to send a sample or instrument to a specific channel, we have to open the channel rack. And now here on the channel rack, you can either use this box next to the name of the instrument, or you can open the wrapper of the instrument, and here on the top right corner, you can select which channel do you want to send this instrument. So as you can see, I have the kick on the channel 1, the clap on the channel 2, the hi-hat on the channel 3, and the snare on the channel 4. But the piano is just going straight into the master. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna left click on it, scroll with the mouse and send it to the channel number 5. And that's the way how you send your instrument to a specific channel. So back into the mixer, the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rename each individual channel. In order to do that, simply go to the channel that you wanna rename, right click on it and select the option of rename color and icon. So now that I have all of the channel renamed, I can easily see in which channel are going all of my instruments. Then here on the right side is where we can add all of the effects. We have 10 different slots on each channel. And if you want to add an effect, just left click on this little arrow and select the effect that you want to add. Then on each individual channel, you have a mute or solo button, a pan knob if you want to put it on the left or on the right, a volume knob, and few other advanced options for polarity and stereo width. In order to understand how the mixer works, let me first explain you how is the routing from the instrument to the master. Okay, so I'm gonna use the kick instrument to explain the routing. So here on the kick instrument, as you can see, is going to the channel 1. And now on the channel 1, the signal is going straight into the effect section, which means that first the signal it goes into the slot 1, then to the slot 2, then to the slot 3, and continue till the slot 10. So the first thing that you have to know is that the order of the effects is really important. Now after the slot 10, the signal it goes into this equalizer on the bottom, and after the equalizer the signal goes straight into the panning, then into the volume fader, and last the stereo separation. Now here on the bottom you can see these little arrows which shows that the signal it goes straight into the master. But if you don't want to send it straight to the master and you want to send it to a different channel, you can simply go to the channel that you want to send, for example insert 10, and here on this little arrow on the bottom with the kick channel selected, I can right click on it and select one of these options: route to this track, route to this track only, sidechain to this track, or sidechain to this track only. So if I select route to this track only, means that the kick channel, after all of the effects, the panning, the volume fader and stereo width, it goes straight into the insert number 10, which again follows the same order. First the effects section, then the equalizer, then it goes into the panning, then goes to the volume fader, and last the stereo separation. And here on this little arrow on the bottom you can see that it goes straight into the master channel. And last, here on the top of the mixer you have different options to customize how the mixer looks. Okay, so now that we cover all of this section, I just want to clarify that this is just a basic introduction of how to use FL Studio. If you are not sure of what you should learn next, then I made a video talking about the learning curve of a music production, which I'm gonna leave the link of the video on the description below. So that's all for me. Hope you like and learn something from this video. If you have any question, please leave a comment below. Thank you very much for watching. My name is John Hatt.